NASA has just confirmed what many scientists had whispered about for weeks, and what others refused to believe even possible. At precisely 0317 UTC, the Deep Space Monitoring Array at Mauna Kea detected an anomalous gravitational disturbance aligned with the trajectory of the interstellar object 3I Atlas, the third visitor ever recorded entering our solar system from beyond. Within minutes, the feeds from 3 orbital observatories began to flicker. Then, one by one, they went completely dark. The official NASA report calls it a temporary loss of telemetry. But internal data, leaked through an encrypted form used by researchers at Caltech, paints a far stranger picture. For 11 minutes, Earth's magnetic field fluctuated, slightly, almost imperceptibly, but in a pattern that no one could explain. Instruments from Greenland to Argentina registered a synchronized pulse, as if the planet itself had responded to something. At first, scientists thought it was a solar event, a flare, a burst from a sunspot cluster. But the sun was calm. No flare, no coronal mass ejection. The disturbance was localized, centered not on the sun, but directly along the path of 3I Atlas, now crossing the inner orbit of Mars. A voice in one of NASA's internal communications, a recording later verified by 2 independent sources, said only, "We've lost Voyager 2's signal for the first time in over a decade. It's as if something's absorbing the transmission." Within hours, amateur astronomers worldwide began to notice subtle irregularities in the night sky. A faint, shifting luminescence near the coordinates of the interstellar object. It pulsed, slowly, rhythmically, like a heartbeat. Several images briefly appeared on NASA's public server before being removed. But archived versions remain. An indistinct silhouette, a geometry that defied description. It wasn't just a rock or comet fragment. It had structure. Meanwhile, the global magnetometer network registered a brief but measurable distortion. The numbers didn't add up. One researcher from the European Space Agency described it as a fingerprint on the fabric of reality. Inside mission control, tension escalated. Multiple monitors showed static. A technician claimed he saw data packets looping back, repeating in reverse binary. Others dismissed it as a software glitch. Yet the telemetry logs show a pattern repeating every 23 seconds, the same prime number interval recorded by Voyager when it crossed the heliopause decades ago. The official channels remained silent. NASA's press office released a 2-sentence statement about signal interference due to unexpected cosmic activity. But those who were on shift that night say the truth was much more chaotic. Phone lines between NASA, ESA, and JAXA burned with urgent encrypted traffic. An internal order was issued to isolate all feeds from the Deep Space Network until further notice. You can feel it, that tightening in your chest, when the familiar starts to slip into the unexplainable. Why would 3 separate satellites fail simultaneously? Why did ground-based magnetometers register a harmonic resonance at exactly the same moment? And then came the footage. A 12-second clip uploaded anonymously to a private astrophysics Discord server before being deleted. It showed what looked like a black arc, curved, shimmering, almost organic, crossing the dark side of Mars. For 2 frames, there appeared to be movement along its edge, like light, reflecting off a surface that shouldn't be there. Experts who analyzed the leak noted something impossible. The object's relative motion didn't match its trajectory. It seemed to adjust, as if aware it was being observed. Panic, spread quietly across observatories. Astronomers stopped answering journalists. Data feeds were rerouted through encrypted VPNs. Even automated public sky trackers like Skyview and Stellarium began to omit 3i Atlas from their datasets. Someone, or something, wanted it hidden. And yet, fragments of truth slipped through. Infrasound detectors in Antarctica registered a deep, subsonic vibration, the same frequency, astonishingly, as the oscillation pattern around the object's path. Earth was responding. We've seen comets, asteroids, even interstellar debris before, but never has a passing object affected our planet in real time. Not gravitationally, not magnetically, not like this. For days, scientists debated behind closed doors. Could 3i Atlas be more than a rock? Could it be emitting a field that interacts with Earth's core, with the magnetosphere itself? Or was it something far beyond our understanding, a remnant, perhaps, of a civilization that once crossed the void? The official data stops abruptly at 0329 UTC. All further telemetry was classified, and in that silence, the fear grew. Because if the patterns are correct, if the resonance continues to rise, then something fundamental about our world is shifting. And as one anonymous NASA engineer posted before their account vanished, it's not just coming closer, it's calling. But what followed next shattered everything we thought we knew about reality. In the hours following the disappearance of telemetry, the story deepened. It was no longer a matter of lost signals or coincidental anomalies. Evidence began to accumulate that something extraordinary had occurred. The first to raise the alarm was a team at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. One of their internal Slack channels, later leaked by an anonymous engineer, contained a series of urgent messages, all time-stamped between E0330 and 0415 UTC. They reported fluctuations in orbital trajectory calculations for 3i Atlas, suggesting a deviation too precise to be accidental. According to the leaked internal Anomaly report, the object's speed and vector shifted in ways that contradicted classical orbital mechanics. The report included a table of telemetry data showing repeated pulses every 23.7 seconds, echoing patterns previously observed only in signals from Voyager 1 as it crossed interstellar space. One engineer, writing under a pseudonym, noted, "This is either a mathematical coincidence of the highest order, or it's responding. And I don't mean to gravity." Meanwhile, the James Webb Space Telescope had been scheduled to observe 3i Atlas in infrared spectrum. Images captured a strange diffraction pattern, a shimmering halo around the object that appeared to phase in and out of visibility over successive frames. Independent astrophotographers verified similar effects, capturing the faint outline of geometric shapes embedded within the halo. When NASA's internal data analysts attempted to replicate the readings, the simulation software crashed repeatedly, citing non-Euclidean interference. Even the frequency spectrum of the signals recorded by the Deep Space Network was unusual. A 14-minute segment of the raw data, later posted in a private astrophysics forum, revealed a repeating sequence of prime numbers embedded within the static. The sequence was unmistakable, coded into the noise like a signature, a pattern that suggested intelligence, or at least deliberate design. One anonymous post read, "It's as if someone, or something, is trying to communicate, but in a language we don't recognize." The reports mention a secret NASA briefing held at 0880 UTC, which leaked to several news outlets. In the internal transcript, a senior engineer stated, "The anomalies are manifesting in multiple dimensions of observation. Magnetometers, infrasound sensors, orbital telemetry, all are reporting non-random deviations. This is not a glitch. It wasn't only the data that alarmed observers. Observatories in Chile reported faint auditory signals in the subsonic range, recorded on highly sensitive acoustic sensors designed for seismic studies. The pattern of the pulses corresponded closely with the telemetry anomalies, creating a synchronized resonance across instruments separated by thousands of kilometers. In lay terms, Earth itself seemed to be vibrating in response to the passing object. Images taken by the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter briefly captured an outline of what could only be described as a structured form, elongated, curved, with surface features that defied natural processes. The object's reflection in sunlight suggested facets, edges, and symmetry, not characteristic of asteroids or cometary bodies. When the images were first released publicly, NASA pulled them down within 12 minutes, citing preliminary verification errors. Yet multiple mirrors and archival snapshots survive online, their authenticity confirmed by independent astrophysicists. Even more troubling, the anomaly seemed to affect spacecraft systems. Telemetry from OSIRIS-REx, currently near Bennu, showed inexplicable fluctuations in its power output and orientation. The anomaly extended to Earth-orbiting satellites. Several low-orbit observation satellites reported brief but significant magnetic disturbances that did not correlate with solar or geomagnetic activity. Throughout this chaos, one pattern became clear: the signals, the pulses, the strange trajectories. None of it was random. It was coherent. A repeated rhythm, a sequence, an unmistakable signature. Scientists began to whisper about possibilities previously confined to science fiction. Could 3i Atlas be self-aware in some sense? Could it be scanning, observing, or even communicating? And yet, despite all evidence, official channels remained silent. Internal emails indicated that certain NASA archives had been restricted. Some datasets erased entirely. Observers on private forums noticed accounts of engineers disappearing from online communities after posting about the anomaly. By late afternoon, the consensus in leaked communications was chilling. The deviations were deliberate, not accidental. Some researchers even speculated that 3i Atlas was reacting to human observation itself, adjusting its trajectory, or manipulating signals in a way that suggested an intelligence far beyond our own. Then, a final entry in one of the leaked NASA logs froze every reader. Preliminary analysis confirms the resonance pattern is growing. If unmitigated, the next phase will interact directly with Earth's magnetosphere. Scientists realized this was no instrumentation error. Something truly had happened. By the following morning, the anomaly had captured the full attention of the world's top minds. Among them was Elon Musk, who, in a hastily convened press briefing from SpaceX's headquarters, appeared unusually tense. He revealed that the James Webb Telescope had recorded not just the object's presence, but its behavior. It moved with a precision that violated every known law of physics. Musk's words sent a ripple of unease through the scientific community. The object is intelligent. It's adjusting its trajectory in real time. It's not responding to gravitational forces alone. Something is directing it. Across the Atlantic, Dr. Michio Kaku, a leading theoretical physicist, spoke on a private webcast to a group of astrophysicists. His normally composed demeanor betrayed concern. He described the prime number sequences embedded in the signal as a universal mathematical signature, something that suggested not just observation, but intent. Dr. Kaku paused, then added, "If this is true, if the object is communicating in ways we can only barely detect, then everything we've believed about interstellar space is incomplete. We are witnessing a phenomenon that could rewrite astrophysics." At NASA's own briefing rooms, tension was palpable. A senior astrophysicist, whose identity remains anonymous, leaked a fragment of an internal interview. "I've never seen telemetry like this. Every model we run fails. The object anticipates our measurements. It's as if it knows what we're trying to do before we do it." The scientists were divided between awe and fear. Some proposed sending a probe to intercept or measure the object directly. Others warned of the potential consequences of provoking a force that might operate on a scale beyond comprehension. All, however, agreed on one point. The signals were not random. Amateur astronomers and independent researchers corroborated the reports. In Chile, a small observatory managed to capture a brief, distorted signal that sounded alarmingly like a human voice, a series of syllables repeated in a rhythm matching the object's pulse. The clip went viral on encrypted forums before being removed. Analysts who studied the audio described it as structured, purposeful, and eerily familiar. Even Elon Musk's engineers were unnerved. They reported sudden malfunctions in the telemetry systems of Starlink satellites, consistent with the disturbances originating near Mars. Musk tweeted cryptically, "We are observing something unprecedented. 3i Atlas is not a passive visitor. We may be witnessing a new kind of cosmic intelligence." The situation was further complicated by unusual behavior detected in Perseverance's instruments on Mars. Seismic readings showed micro-vibrations in regions where no natural tectonic activity should occur. The rover's cameras captured fleeting shadows, linear and geometric, that disappeared when approached with automated analysis algorithms. Despite the evidence, public statements remained cautiously neutral. NASA issued a series of technical notes emphasizing that all systems are functioning nominally, even as internal communications suggested otherwise. An anonymous engineer later described the environment in the control rooms as tense, almost surreal, like everyone knew something was coming, but no one could say what. The most unsettling development, however, came from the cryptic messages intercepted from the Deep Space Network. A fragment of raw data, independently verified by MIT's Astrophysics Lab, contained a pattern of frequencies that, when converted into simple waveforms, mirrored the human heartbeat. Scientists attempted to dismiss it as interference, yet the pulse synchronized with the object's movements across multiple observatories. It became clear that even the greatest minds were powerless to explain the phenomenon. Each revelation only deepened the mystery. A pattern that responded to observation, signals that imitated biological rhythms, and a presence that seemed aware. And then Musk made a startling declaration during a private live stream with select scientists. "Our instruments have tracked an object that defies our understanding of physics. We are observing behavior that is conscious. And if this is intelligence, it's aware that we are watching. We may have already been noticed." In response, Dr. Kaku, visibly shaken, noted, "We are not just observers. For the first time, it's possible we are participants in a cosmic experiment. And we don't know the rules." Whispers spread among those following the incident. Could Earth itself be in some form of interaction with 3i Atlas? Could the subtle disturbances in magnetometers, infrasound detectors, and satellite systems indicate a planetary scale influence? But Musk was not the only one who knew. Somewhere, a lone researcher, a figure only identified in scattered internal memos as Subject X, had attempted to warn the world weeks earlier, before the anomaly became undeniable. Their warnings were dismissed, classified, and almost entirely erased from public record. And the looming thought that haunted every scientist, every engineer, every observer was simple and terrifying. If 3i Atlas is intelligent, if it understands the universe in ways we cannot begin to fathom, what does it want? The answers were just out of reach, but the first clue was already there, hidden in plain sight, waiting for those daring or foolish enough to decipher it. But Musk was not the only one who knew the truth. One person had already tried to warn the world. It began with a whisper inside the static. At first, no one noticed. The signals from 3i Atlas had grown weaker, fragmented, as if something was intentionally obscuring them. But then, in the deep spectrum data received by the Deep Space Network, analysts discovered something impossible. The noise wasn't random. It was structured. The first discovery came from a small team of linguists and signal engineers working under contract with NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. They were reprocessing the intercepted frequencies when one of them, a researcher named Dr. Alicia Kerr, noticed a subtle modulation, faint, rhythmic, and hauntingly familiar. When she slowed the data to human audible range, it formed a low, pulsing tone that rose and fell like breathing. And buried beneath that pulse, almost inaudible, came a pattern of syllables. Turn. Back. No one in the room spoke for nearly a minute. The words, if they were words, repeated 3 times, then dissolved into static. At first, they thought it was a hoax, a prank inserted by someone inside the data pipeline. But the metadata showed no signs of tampering. The signal originated from the same deep space coordinates associated with 3i Atlas. It was authentic. Within hours, the entire dataset was classified. NASA's servers locked down. The audio was scrubbed from all public mirrors. But it was too late. Fragments had already leaked. Amateur analysts across the world confirmed the same waveform patterns. The voice, though distorted, carried harmonic qualities identical to human speech frequencies. And then, something even stranger occurred. As linguists analyzed the modulation, they noticed that the sequence of pulses corresponded to the same prime number intervals identified weeks earlier, but this time they were spaced in Fibonacci order, a sequence fundamental to biology, nature, and life itself. That night, Dr. Kerr sent a final encrypted email to a colleague. It read, "It's trying to communicate, but not in language, in resonance. It's learning." She never sent another message. Meanwhile, the James Webb Telescope detected a sudden shift in infrared reflection. The object's surface, once inert and dark, now emitted faint energy fluctuations synchronized with the Earth's own electromagnetic field. To the untrained eye, the readings were meaningless. But to physicists at MIT, it meant one terrifying thing. The object was responding to Earth's magnetic pulse. Every attempt to probe it with radar or light was mirrored by an equivalent counterfrequency, a kind of feedback loop, as though the object was listening and replying. The more scientists observed it, the more it reacted. Then, on the evening of March 3rd, every transmission from the Deep Space Network went dark. A system-wide blackout lasting exactly 13 minutes and 21 seconds. When power returned, technicians found that all recording buffers had been wiped clean, overwritten with a sequence of zeros and ones that, when plotted visually, formed an unmistakable shape, a perfect spiral. NASA publicly blamed a massive data corruption event. But insiders spoke differently. One engineer, in a private message leaked to Reddit before being deleted, said, "We didn't lose data. The data erased itself." And it wasn't just NASA. Across the world, independent observatories reported similar phenomena: memory drives failing, instruments freezing, archives vanishing. It was as though 3i Atlas was reaching through the network itself, scrubbing traces of its own existence. A week later, one of the most chilling revelations surfaced. The European Space Agency's internal report, later leaked to Der Spiegel, claimed that after the blackout, several sensors in orbit began transmitting a new signal, a mirror of the original 3i Atlas pulse, but reversed. When decoded, the frequency modulation matched the brainwave patterns of a human in deep REM sleep. That discovery forced even the skeptics to reconsider. Was the object trying to communicate with human consciousness itself? Or was it mimicking us, imitating neural rhythms as a kind of camouflage? Theories multiplied. Some claimed it was a probe, a fragment of ancient artificial intelligence designed to awaken upon detection of a certain species. Others believed it was something far older, a remnant of a civilization that had left messages across the stars, encoded not in language, but in physics. But the scariest explanation came from within NASA's own security division. In a classified meeting, transcripts later leaked through whistleblower archives, one senior official said, "We believe the object has adapted to our observation systems. It's using them as conduits. Every time we study it, it learns more about us. And now, it's inside our network." When word of that statement leaked, major observatories across the planet went silent. Data feeds from Webb, Perseverance, and Voyager were rerouted through classified channels. All public dashboards began displaying placeholders or empty readings. And then, one last message appeared on a forgotten NASA test server, a text log with no sender ID, no metadata, no origin traceable. It contained just 6 words. "You should not have answered." The file auto-deleted seconds later. What happened after that remains under investigation, though officially no such message ever existed. But across scientific networks, encrypted chat rooms, and dark web archives, one phrase continues to circulate among those who saw the raw data before it vanished. When they tried to send a reply, everything changed. For several days, the world went quiet. The networks that once pulsed with real-time data from the heavens fell into an uncanny stillness. No new images, no public statements, only the slow, measured heartbeat of static on every frequency where the voice of the cosmos used to sing. At first, people assumed the silence meant safety, that NASA and the global observatories had contained the anomaly, isolated the threat, restored control. But then, one by one, the telescopes began to disconnect themselves. Automated systems shut down without command. Instruments aligned toward coordinates no human operator had entered. A low hum filled the control rooms, described by technicians as a resonance that seemed to come from the walls themselves. When contact with the Deep Space Network was finally restored, the first packet of data received contained nothing but a date, 3 days in the future, and a single coordinate pointing not toward Mars, but directly back at Earth. From that moment, the scientific community fractured. Some believed 3i Atlas had completed its mission, using our instruments as a mirror to project something inward. Others insisted that the signal had merged with the planet's magnetic field, becoming a global phenomenon. Satellites began to report subtle distortions in low-orbit telemetry. Magnetometers flickered without cause. Birds migrated erratically, veering in perfect concentric spirals that matched the object's last recorded resonance pattern. Seismic sensors registered tremors so uniform they could not be geological. Whatever 3i Atlas was, a vessel, an intelligence, a message, its presence was now everywhere. Elon Musk reappeared briefly on a live feed from an undisclosed SpaceX facility. His expression was pale, detached. "We've stopped looking at it," he said quietly, "because now it's looking back." The stream ended mid-sentence. Hours later, all Starlink nodes entered maintenance mode simultaneously and stayed there. In Japan, Dr. Michio Kaku addressed the public one last time. His tone was no longer analytical, but almost mournful. "We once dreamed of meeting something beyond us. Now we must ask whether that dream was a summoning." He raised a hand to the camera, as if listening to something distant, and whispered, "It's still speaking." Then he disconnected. Across the globe, observatories switched to offline operation. Data archives were sealed. Government agencies issued quiet directives urging astronomers to suspend all unclassified communication involving deep space anomalies. Even amateur skywatchers noticed something unusual. The region of the sky where 3i Atlas had once glowed now appeared darker than the rest, a void that absorbed starlight itself. On the 11th day after the blackout, every shortwave radio on the planet picked up the same tone. A low, rhythmic pulse repeating at 23-second intervals. It lasted for exactly 7 minutes, then stopped. Nothing more followed. People around the world reported vivid dreams that night. Flashes of spiraling light, a sensation of falling through endless orbit, a voice whispering in a language they could not remember upon waking. Psychologists called it mass suggestion. But some physicists quietly noted that global electromagnetic resonance measurements spiked precisely during that time frame. NASA never resumed its live streams. The James Webb Telescope now points permanently away from the recorded coordinates of 3i Atlas. Voyager 2 remains silent. The official explanation cites hardware degradation. Unofficially, no one dares to send another signal outward. And yet, in the remote hills of Chile, an independent observatory maintained by graduate students recorded a faint echo 3 weeks later, a pulse identical to the original 3i Atlas sequence, but weaker, as if reflected back from the ionosphere. When the signal was slowed down and translated into the visible spectrum, it formed a single phrase in binary: "We hear you." After that, nothing. No more pulses, no more light. Just the endless, heavy quiet of space. Scientists across every discipline now face an unbearable question. Did we awaken something that had been waiting, patient, and unseen? Or did we simply notice a truth that was always there, that the universe is not empty, but aware? Perhaps that's why NASA no longer speaks. Perhaps that's why every antenna turned away. Because if the silence that followed is not the end, but the beginning, then humanity has already crossed a line it can never return from. Now the feeds are back online, the static has cleared, but the original carrier wave, the one tied to 3i Atlas, is still there, faint, unbroken, humming, beneath every frequency on Earth, and no one can tell who or what it's waiting for.